You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome back to another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder with you to discuss the Sabres' upcoming trade deadline. We're going to get our thoughts on what players we think might move. We got our Twitter polls with everything regarding the trade deadline on our bi-weekly show here, and by the time we record again, the trade deadline will have come and passed, so we're hoping to do some sort of trade deadline kind of recap when we do get to that point, but this will be our last recording before the trade deadline, so we're going to get into all of, I guess, what we think Buffalo is going to do come the trade deadline on March 9th. And as well, we'll kind of discuss the cap situation. We'll get the Twitter polls, as I mentioned. We'll talk about some new news regarding the Sabres and some renovations going on at KeyBank Center, which have been very much needed over the last few years. And we'll look ahead to the coming games a little bit here. We got the standings, the player stats, all that good jazz for you guys here on the show. As always, make sure to follow us on X at Sabres Semantics for all of our Sabres coverage on there. You can give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're trying to post some little reels from our episodes to try to get a little bit more engagement from you guys and to give you a little bit more clips of what to expect from our episodes so you can go and watch the full episodes on demand. And if you are watching today on demand on the video version, thank you very much for doing so. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell if you are enjoying our glorious faces here on the video versions of the podcast. And if you're listening today in on-demand audio, thank you very much for doing that, and pre-apologies for Austin and myself. We're both just getting over a small bug here of our voices sound a little bit different than what you'd expect listening to all of our episodes on demand. So with that said, Austin, before we get into the trade deadline portion of today's show, let's quickly, I just want to get your thoughts on how the team's played as of late. At the time of recording this, tonight they're going to be playing
the Panthers tonight.
Okay, so they come into that game having won 3 straight, which is a big feat for the Sabres because they've been on a run where they've won one, lost one. They finally won back-to-back games again, and winning 3 in a row. Just want to get your general thoughts on how you think the team has played as of late.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, results-wise, the month hasn't been the greatest, but they haven't been that bad this month. I mean, scoring seems to be a little bit of an issue, which is kind of the flip for what we've come to expect with this team, but honestly, aside from the Anaheim game, which I think was just not abysmal because they played well and scored 3 goals, but that was a game you have to have. Nice to see them rebound after that with 3 straight wins. You now have won 4 out of your last 5. You're playing well. Unfortunately, I guess it's not over, but you're 11 points back. Sucks, but you know what? They're playing well. I said it last night, they're playing just well enough to at least keep people interested for the rest of the year, even though they know the playoffs are kind of a pipe dream at this point. But you know what? Anyone who thinks that they should just try and mail in the towel and maybe go for a better draft pick, which I don't even know if that opinion is out there, but I know, some people say that rather than just missing the playoffs. But right now, where the Sabres are going, they need any positive momentum that they can get, and it looks like they're building some lately. We'll see what happens now. Carolina, that was a really entertaining game. Win over a really big opponent. Couple more big opponents coming up: Florida, Tampa Bay, Vegas. This will really be a nice little stretch for the Sabres if they can string together some wins, maybe build some positive momentum. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the last little stretch of games there. You mentioned the Montreal, Columbus, and Carolina wins. The win against Carolina, that was quite an entertaining game. Went to overtime, and there were chances back and forth. And then Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has come up big like he's done for this team many times this season, showing why he's been their MVP this season with against a strong Carolina team, only allowing 2 goals and then going perfect in the shootout. So I know we raved about Luukkonen in the last episode, but has anything really changed in your mind from what you've seen from the Sabres? I guess we can call him the starting goaltender now.
No, I mean, again, he's probably going to want that Anaheim game back. I know, not a lot of shots, 4 goals given up, sure, decent amount of high quality chances against, but that's probably a game he'll want to have back. But since the calendar flipped over, he's just been the model of consistency. Reliable every night you throw him out there, and you're most like 95% of the time he's not giving up more than 3 goals. So keep building this positive momentum for him. Team in front of him is playing a lot better. Hopefully the goals start coming. We knew they were going to, regress offensively this year. I don't think anyone thought they were going to regress as bad as they have, but maybe you'll see that positive regression for the rest of the year, get back to somewhat of the Sabres that we're used to seeing.
And you talked about the playoff race. I got it up on the video version of the podcast right now. I mean, with the way the Detroit Red Wings have been playing, they've really come 7-2-1 in their last 10. They look great. Patrick Kane looks like he's finally returning to form for them with his connection with Alex DeBrincat. The big win against the Chicago Blackhawks in his return there, and they're the number 1 wild card team now. I remember when the Sabres were just around them and one of the teams they were trying to chase down, and they're now 12 points back of the Detroit Red Wings. And you've got the Tampa Bay Lightning, shockingly sitting in the final wild card spot. We haven't seen that in many years with the dynasty they've kind of built with their Stanley Cup championship runs over the last 5 years. They're the team the Sabres are catching right now with 69 points, or attempting to catch. They're 11 points back, as you mentioned, and they also have 2 games in hand on Tampa. So, I mean, as we approach the deadline here, they've got 5 teams to have to leapfrog here. And even though they have been playing better as of late, 6-4 in the last 10, and they've won 3 in a row, like realistically, do you think that despite the 3-game winning streak, the mindset shouldn't change? Like they should really just be trying to get value here at the deadline and looking ahead to what they can possibly get for their unrestricted free agents and kind of figure it out yet next year with being 11 points out at this point?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I still think, you see like the Eric Johnson, Victor Olofsson. I think no matter what, those 2 should be gone, even if you were, 8 points out with 2 games in hand. Like to me, those 2 need to be gone. Girgensons is a bit of a tougher one. I think he's probably got some value around the trade deadline. But when you hear Kevin Adams talk, I don't think he meant specifically the pending UFAs, but he also said he's not really in the mindset of acquiring more futures. Well, unfortunately, at the trade deadline, if you're trading your pending unrestricted free agents, for the most part, it is for futures. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles that sort of thing. The real interesting thing around the trade deadline is, does any meaningful stuff happen with Casey Middlestat, or is it really just laying the groundwork for a trade in the summer? Does a trade, kind of materialize, or do the Sabres turn around and sign him to an extension? Because to me, that is a real intriguing storyline for the trade deadline. The pending guys, like I said, I don't know what the value is for them.
Yeah, I mean, we got a comment on on our recent episode about Kyle Oposo kind of earning the right to stay or go as the captain. Like, do you kind of want to elaborate on that for the people that were kind of confused as to why you believe that Kyle Oposo kind of controls his own destiny here as the captain, even though, the numbers haven't been there for him the last few years offensively?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want anyone to get confused, whereas I think that means Oposo is, performance-wise deserves to be here. Like, if the trade comes for him, I would be happy to see him gone and open up a spot. But a veteran, he's been here for 6 years. Everything that he's gone through on and off the ice here, you had the nice 1,000-game ceremony with him this year. To me, it's just that is the easy goodwill that you can show your veteran in your locker room, where if he doesn't want to go, you don't move him. Again, it's a special case for a guy like him. I'm not saying you need to handle every UFA like that, but Kyle Oposo just feels like the history there. It seems like it's a no-brainer to where if he doesn't want to move, all right, for 20, whatever it'll be after the trade deadline, the 22 games left, you let him play and ride out his career here in Buffalo, and you give him his farewell at the end of the year. I didn't think that was a controversial take at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at it like if we were talking about Eric Johnson, I'd say that they would be right because he's only been here for, half of a season here. 3/4 of a season by the time the deadline hits. And yeah, if you want to move that guy, just move him. He hasn't lived up to the expectations that you had thought that he would. Maybe you put unrealistic expectations on Erik Johnson at this point in his career. This isn't the number 1 overall pick, Erik Johnson, from the late 2010s there. But I think with Kyle Okposo, I think it's just, like you mentioned, a lot of different factors as to why he kind of controls his own destiny with the Sabres. And if he wants to be here to finish out the rest of his contract or the rest of his career, if this is his last year in the National Hockey League, I think many people around the organization would say he's earned that right with what he's done as a leader on and off the ice, and he's wearing your C. He's been the C for a couple years now. And I don't really think that his performance on the ice, and you're looking at his point totals from when he was with the Islanders and playing with John Tavares to what he is now. I think that's kind of unfair to ask from an aging veteran winger like him.
Yeah, again, like I said, my take wasn't really to do with performance-wise. Obviously, performance-wise, it's clear Okposo has lost a little bit of a step, but he's also lost a step for the last couple of years. That's why he's been in that fourth-line checking role. He's not really here to score goals anymore. Yeah, do I think the game's a little bit passed him by? Of course. But to me, just everything, yeah, like I said, everything he's gone through on and off the ice, he's stuck it out here. He's earned the right to be here if he wants to be here, and if he wants to go for a cup, yeah. And with Okposo, you're not looking for a whole lot in return. He's that type of guy where you're probably not going to get a lot for him, but if he wants to go, you let him go on the cup. But if he wants to stay here because his family loves it here, you let him stay here. I don't know. Like I said, it has nothing to do with I think he's a cornerstone of this team on this year. It's just, to me, that's some easy goodwill that you're going to show a good longtime veteran like that and let him have his farewell tour here if that's what he wants.
Yeah, right. I agree. So as we kind of dive into the trade deadline, as the thumbnail says here, and that's basically what this episode is today. Not really going over the games. We gave our thoughts on that, but I know you guys are here to talk about or listen to our thoughts about the upcoming trade deadline, because obviously that is the hot topic here leading up from a couple weeks from now when the deadline does come and pass. And this is always the big time for the rumor mill of what's actually going to happen, and it's a big topic around the National Hockey League. So as we look at the cap-friendly situation for the Sabres, their current projected cap space is $7.696 million, with guys like Jack Quinn and Matthias Samuelsson on LTIR. Samuelsson specifically on LTIR, going to miss the rest of the year, so his cap space kind of opens up there. The Sabres have all of their picks except for a 5th rounder this year, and they have an extra 4th from the Vegas Golden Knights and an extra 7th in 2025. So the draft pick cupboard is pretty well stocked here, Austin, for the Sabres, and we expect them to get maybe a couple more late-round picks for some of those UFAs, but as we'll get into with our Twitter polls, did you see them making some sort of bigger significant move where they either move one of these top-end draft picks or maybe accumulate a couple of more picks here?
I could see it. Like I said, I think the interesting situation is Middlestat, maybe to a lesser extent Henry Jokiharju. I know his name's not exactly out there, but those are the two guys pending RFAs where I could see both of them kind of having the same mentality like you've committed to a lot of these other guys. I would like to see the same kind of commitment here, or maybe send me somewhere else where I can get it. Middlestat's been really good. He's also said publicly he wants to be here. I know it was kind of ruled out that they were shopping him, but they've been taking calls on him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Jokiharju, I think, is a little bit lesser extent. I think he's playing a lot better as of late. But he was clearly in and out of the lineup, maybe a little bit out of favor early on, but he seems to be back now. Defensive injuries and things like that have kind of played a part of that, but he's playing a lot better. So if there's a surprise move to be out there, I feel like it'll be one of those two. I don't envision the Sabres trading a high pick this year to go out and get a player, but maybe, the Greenway deal where you give up a 2nd or a 3rd or something like that to go and get somebody. Or if you're looking at a top prospect to maybe get moved, maybe you're looking at a Matt Savoy or an Isaac Rosen. Those are your trade chips there. Again, I just don't exactly know what's out there. If you're trading Middlestat, you need to acquire a forward coming in, because let's face it, there's no Jack Quinn coming back in the near future to kind of fill that role. So I don't know. They're a wild card. I don't envision them being all that busy, but I do think there's a handful of moves that they can be made there. Like I said, to me this year, I know it stinks because that's what the trade deadline has become about. It's become about the pending UFAs, but that's not the interesting story with the Sabres this year, in my opinion. But it's probably all we're going to end up talking about because I don't know. I don't envision that move happening now if it's going to happen at all.
Yeah, you don't envision a more of a hockey trade, a long-term hockey trade happening, and if you do, it would be either in that draft time or in the summer where the cap situation kind of opens up for other teams to be able to have the flexibility to take and move contracts a little bit.
Exactly, like you said, there could be. Was it a couple of years ago we saw Vrana and Mantha get swapped at the deadline, in the last hour there. So like these trades do happen. In terms of players that are out there, I don't really know what the equivalent of Casey Middlestat would be, but Adams has made it clear he's not interested in futures if that's the type of trade that he's going to make. He's interested in a talent for talent swap, and I don't know. Is it a young defenseman on a team? Is it another forward, just a different name? I don't really know. I know, depending on what you read and who you hear out there, there's some younger guys on some people's big boards, but I don't know if any of them are exactly what the Sabres are looking for. I know Jeff Merrick's talked a lot about, Scott Lawton and him being someone that the Sabres are interested in, but I don't know if that's the type of move I necessarily want the Sabres to make because I still think they need, not that Lawton's not a good player. He is a good player. He's a different player, but Peyton Krebs, the way that he's been playing lately, maybe you can elevate him and you need more of that physical jam. I don't know. Like I said, I don't envision it happening now. To me, it's more of a summer or, like you said, draft or free agency style of trade.
Yeah, and at Jeff Skinner situation, we know that he left practice yesterday, so again, that's kind of concerning there, what the situation might be with him, but you're right. I think if you make a move, you're going to need to bring some forwards back in because, if you're trading away Casey Middlestat, and if Jeff Skinner is going to be away on a somewhat significant absence here with Jack Quinn already out, like those are three big holes that you would have to fill in the forward lines, and I'm sorry, but Tyson Jost and Eric Robinson aren't going to be able to fill those top end roles in your top six on your winger spots. So I'm with you. If they do a move, make a move where Middlestat is moved, I'd want to see an NHL talented forward come back in the deal, not just two top prospects that aren't even going to get in the lineup. I know there are some guys in Rochester that could be given the opportunity that are capable of possibly stepping into an NHL role, but again, are they ready for that type of role in a top six if you were to move a Casey Middlestat who's, worked up and down and been like the ultimate utility guy for them this year? And if Jeff Skinner doesn't miss any sort of time or any other forward that does get injured, like the Sabres really don't have the top six depth up there right now to be able to, overcome a significant injury like that. So I'm with you. If they, I want to make sure that they get somebody else back in that deal.
Yeah, no, and I think, like, again, I don't think there's much to worry about there. If a guy like a Middlestat is traded based off everything Adams has said, and, it's kind of hard to not believe him when he talks because for the most part, he does kind of stick to his guns there. And he said, I'm not looking for future pieces right now. I'm not looking for draft picks or top prospects anymore. So, again, the pen and UFAs is different. You're not going to get an NHL caliber piece for an Eric Johnson, a Victor Olofsson, a Zemgus Girgensons. You take what you can get to open up the roster spot there. But for the guys who have some value, he's not looking for those futures, according to him. So I don't think we have to worry about that. Like you said, though, if Middlestat is moved out, depending on what they get, if you're trading Middlestat for that defenseman, I hope he either is ready to elevate somebody or he's got another move ready to go to replace him because, like you said, the depth in the top six is kind of an issue right now, but also Middlestat has been playing really well and producing. And don't get me wrong, Dylan Cousins is very capable of being that number two center. Peyton Krebs is now kind of showing he can be that top nine center, which is a whole different argument, different story that I'll get into later. But you got to have those security plans in place. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. I don't envision it happening now. That's kind of been my feeling from the get-go. To me, that is more of a draft trade. You maybe lay the groundwork, have some conversations at the deadline. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, we got, a week and a half here? Maybe he's working the phones. Maybe some momentum gets made and the right deal shows up and we have a trade to talk about here. The thing about the Sabres is they work quietly, and when moves happen, we kind of don't really hear any inkling of it. So I guess I wouldn't be shocked if we wake up one day and Adams makes a big move. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really see the Greenway trade coming last year. We knew he wanted to be active, but that really wasn't something that the Sabres fans were, expecting to kind of come. So Adams, like you said, kind of works quietly and doesn't really give a whole lot out there, and there really isn't a whole lot to speculate there. He always talks about they're always at being active. So that's basically like the answer he loves to give with that. But you're right about Middlestat. I mean, he's leading the team in points right now. So if you get a guy and you want to try to show your fans that you're trying to at least play meaningful games down the stretch here, trading away your leading point getter right now, that kind of would signal, okay, well, what are we doing here? And obviously, they'd want to look to the future and know that they really can't sign Middlestat to a long-term extension with all of the other players that they've locked up recently to long-term deals around his age group there. So, if you do trade a guy like Middlestat and you want to show the fans that you're still serious about competing, even though 11 points is a lot at this point, like you said, they're going to need to show that bring in somebody that can maybe not replace Middlestat's production, but at least give you something in that top six.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, based off everything you said, there's no reason to believe that Middlestat's going anywhere unless it's for like a talent for talent NHL caliber player. So I don't think there's much to worry about on that end. I'm still not fully convinced that they trade him. Again, maybe that's just me, but it's very funny that their whole mantra has kind of been, we want players that want to be here. Middlestat is actively saying he wants to be here. So this would be the first instance of Adams kind of stepping away from the mantra that he's kind of developed here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing either. But again, it's just that track record of Kevin Adams. We haven't seen it yet. Until he does something to break himself out of that track record, I'm always just going to assume he sticks to that.
Yeah. And I mean, I got Cap Friendly up on the board there. Like, is there any other forwards that you could even see possibly being able to move from this group? Because you've signed all these guys to long-term deals, and some guys are immovable, and some guys you obviously want to be a long-term, piece of the long-term plan in the core here, like a Cousins and a Tage Thompson. So you mentioned Victor Olofsson and some of the other UFAs, but I mean, a couple of guys that do have term on their contracts are like Greenway, and Alex Tuck is also a name that's been thrown around, but you'd think that a guy like Alex Tuck, with how much he loves Buffalo, would be like a guy that would be untouchable. But maybe if the Sabres got the right deal, if a team really valued getting a right winger on their roster, like, could you see any situation where Kevin Adams would want to move Alex Tuck? His basically biggest trade piece that he got in that Jack Eichel trade.
Look, aside from a handful of names, I don't think any player should be untouchable. If the right value is there, you have to at least explore it. But I don't envision Tuck being moved. I think Friedman said the same thing. Greenway, I think he's playing extremely well. $3 million. He's still signed through next year. I can see other teams valuing him, but I kind of like the way he's been playing. Again, no one should be untouchable. So if the right deal is there, sure. The other name is interesting to me is Peyton Krebs. I think I saw him thrown out there a couple times. Same thing, though. You're finally seeing what he can do in a top 9 role. And while the points aren't sexy, he's playing extremely well. It would be very weird to try and trade him now when I don't think his value has never been lower, let's be honest. So I don't think he's someone you look to move now either. I don't think you're trading a Quinn, a Paterka. You're not trading Tage. Skinner is immovable, but I guess if the right deal is there, I also wouldn't be down. I wouldn't be against that, but that's not reality in my opinion. So really, I guess Greenway and Tuck would be the other two that I think have some high value. But I can't see it being Tuck. So maybe Greenway's a surprise trade target. But again, that Granato connection, I don't know.
Yeah, and I look at Tuck, and he's got one more year left after this year, and he's currently making 4.75. Actually, he's got 2 more years left, and by the end of that contract, he'll be 30 years old. So I know he really wants to be a Sabre, and he grew up a Sabres fan, and we know how invested he is in the Buffalo community and all the great things that he does off the ice. But if you're Kevin Adams, would you exploit? You said that nobody's untouchable already, but could you see a scenario this year of them saying, okay, Alex, we love having you, but we can't say no to this value, and if we're not going to trade a Casey Middlestat, our hands are tied, and you're really the only other guy that we could move that has a lot of value that could get us some significant pieces back right now.
No, I can't see it happening this year. Maybe it's something if stuff doesn't progress well into next year. It's a next year deadline type thing. But as for right now, I can't see it happening. But yeah, like I said, I don't think anyone's untouchable for the right deal. But I think right now, Tuck, 27 years old, 2 more years after this at 4.75, too good a value right now. This is a conversation I think for next year if stuff is not going well.
And lastly, if they were to call up somebody, if a Middlestat was moved or somebody else does get moved from this forward group, like which guy would you expect would be deserving of that call up, and who you think could make the biggest impact for the rest of this season coming up from the Rochester Americans?
I mean, the obvious ones are, Yuri Kulik, Isaac Rosen. I know they haven't exactly been playing to their pre-All-Star level, but those are the two that to me stick out for a top 6 role. Bottom 6 guys, I guess Joe's got the call up here, but if we're talking for like not the Tyson Joe style, maybe you're looking at a Tyson Kozak. I don't know. Victor Nuchev's been very good in a top 9 role, the young Russian, but I think it might be a little bit too early for him. I think realistically you have to give one of the 2 big guns a look, right? Like that's, if you're calling that guy up, it's to see what you have here. Those are the closest 2 in my opinion. They have to get that look. I don't see it being anyone else. The Tyson Joe's call up to me was a little bit weird today because again, I don't envision him filling in for Skinner. Maybe they have some other plan there. I don't know. But if you have that long-term top 9 hole for the rest of the year because a guy like Middlestad's moved, to me, it's got to be Rosen or Kulich.
Yeah.
Kulik. Otherwise, what are we doing here? You're giving up on the season the second you call up one of those guys anyway, so you might as well see what you have in them, let them get their feet wet for like 15, 20 games, send them back down for the playoffs. Who knows? But again, I don't know. I don't know. I for the first time, I don't think much is going to happen. I know it depends on, I guess, your definition of much. To me, the Greenway deal was very unexpected last year. I'm kind of in the opinion of nothing really is going to happen this year. I think Johnson's for sure gone. But other than that, doesn't seem like they can give Olofsson away. So I don't even know if he'll be moved, to be honest, because I feel like if he could have been moved, he would have by now. Girgensons, we know Pagula loves him, so that'll be a tough pill to swallow, but he also could be gone. So I don't know. To me, it's just there's not a whole lot that's going to happen. Watch, I said that. Our next podcast will probably be talking about some big unexpected move that we didn't see coming.
Well, we didn't see Rasmus Asplund getting moved to Nashville for a 7th-round pick a few years ago.
I guess that's fair.
I guess that's an unexpected move that is not going to get Sabres fans too excited about it. But again, it is an unexpected move, I guess you could call it. But hoping for a little bit more than Rasmus Asplund for a 7th-round pick for Sabres fans come deadline day. But we're going to get more deadline talk. I want to get a little bit into the goaltending, and that's in our Twitter polls, our fan polls about the Sabres at the upcoming trade deadline. So stay right here. We got more analysis coming up on Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, brought to you by J&L Flooring.
Last year, more homes canceled cable TV than ever before. Why? It's just too expensive. For half the
J&L Flooring is Niagara's specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. With a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety of truly unique products, J&L Flooring is your specialty flooring and decor boutique shop. All of their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they simplify the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring. Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance, and you can check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983.
Niagara Golf Lounge features 2 state-of-the-art indoor golf simulators, allowing you to play some of the world's best courses all year round. The perfect place to indulge all season long. Don't worry about getting thirsty while you play around with your friends. Their fully stocked bar offers a wide selection of drinks, appetizers, and a variety of meals are also available to enjoy before, during, or after you play. Grab a seat next to the fire in their comfortable sports lounge. Didn't bring your clubs? No problem. They have partnered with TaylorMade to offer you the best rental clubs. You won't want to miss their exclusive NFL and NHL giveaways for the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bills. Located in the Best Western Plus Cairncroft Hotel, 6400 Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more and to reserve your golf bay today. The Niagara Golf Lounge, Niagara's home for golf and sport all year round.
Pets bring immense joy to our homes, becoming an integral part of our families. But this living, loving experience often requires a little extra care and attention. That's where Global Pet Foods comes in, with owners and staff ready to support you every step of the way. Check out one of their locations today. 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Proud to sponsor the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara Ice Dogs.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hey, hey, here we go, it's hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go, the boys in blue, white, and gold. Hey, hey, here we go, make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all, let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand raising our hands, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo. We will be here till the end, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics episode. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder back with you. Proudly brought to you by J&O Flooring. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack. Contact our Niagara Falls location. Begin your quality flooring project today. We're here discussing the Sabres trade deadline, what moves they might make at the deadline, what pieces are possibly movable here, and we're going to get into our fan polls here of what you guys think out there here in the second segment today of today's show. But before we get there, Austin, some news regarding the Sabres and finally getting some renovations to the KeyBank Center, which fans all around have been clamoring for, with a new scoreboard and some other new renovations as well. So as you can see on the video version of the podcast there, they're getting a new video board come the 2024-25 season. This was released yesterday in a statement from the Buffalo Sabres. They've announced renovations to KeyBank Center for the 24-25 season, including a state-of-the-art video board and a new roof to the arena. The 27 by 43-foot video board utilizes the latest technology. The screen size will roughly double of what the current video board will be, with upgrades in resolution and functionality. The video board features 4 digital corner panels, as well as 2 screens in the board's underbelly to provide additional angles for fans in the lower rows to be able to see. So that's a little bit interesting with that. And also, from the ownership perspective, I have put a great deal of thought and research into the fan experience over the last year, and it feels like it's time to begin making gradual upgrades to our arena that will play a key enhancing in game day for our fans, said owner Terry Pagula. We are thrilled about the many projects we have down the pipeline, none bigger than the new video board that will be ready for the 24-25 season. Along with business leadership, I will continue to evaluate areas to invest in the arena with the fan experience in mind. And they will also have the new roof, and they've hired Pike Construction Services of the company to oversee the installation of the new roof and the renovation. So, Austin, first, I guess, reactions to the news that KeyBank Center is going to get a well-needed facelift.
Yeah, I mean, you said that everyone says it. It's much needed. It's well known amongst everyone that the arena needs to be upgraded a little bit. This seems like the first step towards that. The new roof, obviously not nearly as exciting as some of the other renovations that probably need to occur, but it is a necessary move there. The scoreboard, again, another topic that needed to be addressed. It's cool to see it getting a little facelift, getting a little bit of an upgrade there. But, as someone who isn't the biggest fan of, the ownership here, I do think that this is a pretty decent investment on Pagula's part, right? Like, it's not going to be cheap to get a new roof at the arena. It's not going to be cheap to get a new scoreboard. So at least it's showing that he's investing in that. hopefully this is like phase one of like a multiple phase thing where the other parts of the arena get renovated because more is needed. But a low bar to clear, but a good first step towards, getting KeyBank a little bit more modernized. Because aside from, couldn't even tell you. I mean, I know they added some stuff like concession wise to the concourse on the 100 section this year and things like that, but feels like we haven't had a major facelift to that arena in a very long time.
I feel like the seats are the same seats that went in when the building was, went up. So hopefully they do a little bit of improvement on those. And again, it just needs a facelift everywhere, even, maybe the bathrooms and other areas. Like, again, you just see it around the league, especially how many events that they host at the KeyBank Center, from everything from concerts to WWE and other events as well, and the Bandits play there as well. So like, there's a lot of events, and it's an arena that's used all year round for other events, not just the Buffalo Sabres, but for your full-time tenant that brings you the most money for the 41 games that they do play there throughout the season. It's good to know that Terry Pegula recognizes that and sees the kind of fan outcry for some sort of facelift to happen to the arena. We know what's going on with the other team that he owns just down the road there with the Buffalo Bills, and their negotiation for a new stadium for the Bills, and we were wondering, okay, well, you're going to do some new stuff for the Bills. Where are we going to do with the Sabres? Obviously, the Bills have had a lot more success as of late, and obviously the NFL makes more money than the NHL does. But it's nice to see that he's investing again in the Sabres, and just doing those little things just goes a long way, because they always talk a big game when it comes to this sort of thing, or really anything. But when they actually, put the pen to paper and let us know that these things are actually happening, that's a good sign for fans to know that their, opinions are actually valued and cared about.
Yeah, 100%. It's a nice little, I'm not gonna say easy, because renovating an arena isn't necessarily easy, but like you said, it's an easy way to get some good PR back. Upgrade the arena, make it, the game atmosphere a little bit better. Obviously, don't get me wrong, winning cures all, but you know what? It's a lot easier to not put up with it, because we put up with it for so long here in this market, but it's, as long as there's being investments into the team, into the building, into the rest of the organization, at least you can kind of see some direction here. So this is a nice first step. Like I said, should be a multiple phase thing. We'll see. I don't know what else will be planned, but at least for this summer, getting a new roof is nice. New scoreboard is a nice little upgrade. Hopefully some few other things here and there over the next couple of years, because let's be honest, yeah, the arena is in a great location. So if you can keep renovating it and keep bringing it up to date as much as you can, keep it modernized, there's, it's a great spot. Deserves a little bit of some TLC.
And with the Harbor Center right there, they're able to get events where they're able to co-host with the two buildings, such things as the World Juniors and the Combine, and the prospect tournament that they run. I know it's mostly done at Harbor Center, but having those two buildings together is just a very appealing thing when it comes to any sort of event, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, you have a nice state-of-the-art Harbor Center there, a nice hotel, all that fun stuff. Might as well give the NHL arena a little upgrade, because it's needed.
So, speaking of upgrades, let's talk about the things on the ice that the Sabres could do. And we're going to go to our fan polls, and thank you to those that have contributed to that. Remember to follow us at Sabres Semantics for all of our Sabres content and all of our polls that we do post for our upcoming shows there, if you want to have your opinion heard on the show. And you can also, we post it on Facebook, Instagram as well, so you can give us a follow there, Armchair GM Sports Network. So as far as our first Twitter poll goes there, Austin, how many deals will the Sabres make at the upcoming trade deadline? I know this was one that you wanted in there. 0 to 1, 2 to 3, or 3 plus. 0 to 1 took this poll with 44.4%. 2 to 3 was 38.9%, and 3 plus was 16.7%. Is that basically where your mind was at?
Yeah, I'm in the 2 to 3, right? Like I said, I think two moves for sure. I don't imagine they're going to be much, but I imagine after they have these talks with Eric Johnson, I don't see why he wouldn't want to be moved to a cup contender. I imagine there'll be a market for him, veteran defenseman. GMs love that type of thing, so I imagine that's the one that everyone else is assuming as well, I would have to imagine. And I know it'll be tough, but I think it's just time to move on from Girgensons. People are like, what about Olsen? I still am of the opinion where maybe he will get given away for free. I don't know. But I can't believe that if there was a market for him, he would be here. To me, the reason he's still here is because no one No one wants that. And maybe come trade deadline, some weird team says, you know what, I could use the extra scoring on as my 13th forward just in case. But again, I feel like if that was going to happen, that would have already happened. So to me, it's Girgensons, Johnson, maybe Olofsson, but to me, it's that's why it's 2-3, because I think it's Girgensons, Johnson, and maybe a surprise Olofsson move. Like I said, I just don't see anything big happening with Buffalo, because Adams is not looking for futures. And to me, it's just, I know it's cliche, but those trades are hard to happen at the deadline. Some players and teams don't necessarily want to give up that player yet, because, not every team is looking to move something from their roster right now, right? Most teams are either looking to buy or sell. That's why it's a trade deadline. So to me, that the big moves will happen in the summer, if any. I know the Sabres have been linked to, again, this is the fourth period. It's always interesting to see like teams linked in their thing, because, it's just interesting. I don't know how accurate it actually is, but he had Buffalo linked to Caputo, which again is an interesting one, because again, I don't really know if they need another top six winger. I don't know. Scott Lawton, which is someone that Jeff Merrick has talked about, Elliot Friedman has talked about, they've talked about, and he kind of has that missing piece that everyone thinks Buffalo needs, which is that grind it out. He's a warrior type of player. So maybe that happens, but to me, that's not a trade deadline move. I'll go with 2. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, if the Olofsson deal, like you said, if it should have happened already, if it was going to. I mean, the guy's been out of the lineup for the last 2 months. I mean, he's only played when they've had an injury or had to go in there. So to me, like the Olofsson deal, maybe they find a way to throw him in another deal. Like if they do end up moving like a Casey Middlestat, maybe they say, hey, Victor Olofsson's going in that deal as well. So maybe that lowers the compensation a little bit in Buffalo's mind. But again, he's a pending UFA, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Even if Sabres maybe retained the rest of his salary for the end of the year, I'd be okay with that. If they were able to be able to move him, I'd be good with that, because it's only the last year of it anyway. It's not like they're retaining salary for 3 to 4 years on some long-term contract. So I'm in the right now with what the team's doing. I'm in the 2 to 3, because I do think that they will move in Eric Johnson and or Zemgus Girgensons or Kyle Okposo. I don't think all 3 are moved. I think Johnson is gone for sure, and either one of Okposo or Girgensons is gone. I don't see a scenario where they move both of those guys, because they're heart and soul Buffalo guys. I think they move one and let the other one kind of decide their fate at the end of the year. Again, it's not like their performance on the ice, like we've mentioned earlier, is that big of a loss. But again, when you talk about the leadership in the locker room, they're going to need somebody like one of those two guys to kind of remain in that room to kind of keep it together until they figure out their next captain situation. So I do think that the Johnson trade would be one. Olofsson trade would be great, but I think you kind of would have to fit him in some sort of other trade, or some sort of consequential move from another deal that you do make if it is a hockey trade. So again, I'm in the 2 to 3 with those 2 pending UFAs, and hopefully Kevin Adams proves us wrong and is able to make some sort of hockey deal like he did with Jordan Greenway last year, because to me that deal's worked out really well, and he's fit a kind of a role and a mold that the Sabres really didn't have. So if they're able to get another guy like Greenway, I don't think they're going to blow anybody's socks off with a huge move to get a top line forward, giving up 3-4 top end pieces. Like you mentioned, that sort of trade doesn't really happen unless it's a pending UFA. So I'm in the 2 to 3 camp as well, but I would be pleasantly surprised if we were proven wrong and that Adams makes 3+ trades. I just don't think with where the team situation is right now, they're going to be making 5 or 6 deals at the deadline and being one of those teams that we look at on deadline day that's going to be very active.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I don't exactly know where you want to go with next, but I guess this kind of just popped into my head. Is there a player out there that you would like them to target? Like, you know what I mean? Like I've talked about, like there's been guys that they've been linked to. I don't know, but is there anyone specific that you think that you would like them to target?
I want to get our poll involved in that, and I will have an answer for you for that. So, this is our second poll here. If the Sabres are to add a piece to their roster at the deadline, which position should they target? Forward, defense, goalie, or all of the above? Defense won this poll with 52.6%. Forward at 36.8%, goalie was 0, and all of the above was 10.5. So going off of your question to me there, off of that poll, is there a scenario where the Sabres go and get another goaltender? If they could upgrade over Eric Comrie, I'm all for it. Like if they could go out and get a guy that wouldn't be, that wouldn't cost them a lot. Maybe a goalie that's really looked down upon right now that's having a bad season, or maybe if it's even a consequential move where, a team like Minnesota or New Jersey goes out and acquires a goaltender, maybe the Sabres swoop in there and get, maybe an Akira Schmid or one of the other goaltenders that's available there, just kind of fill the role. Because at this point, I just want any sort of veteran upgrade over Eric Comrie as your backup goaltender, because Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is going to need some days off. And I think that you want to keep Devin Levi in Rochester for the rest of the year to kind of build that momentum with that team. I know they have the ability with them being so close to call him up, but to me, I'm kind of going off the board there. And if they do make a move, I would like to see them bring in a better veteran goaltender than Eric Comrie. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I'm not going to say you're crazy, but it's funny how times change, how the poll is 0 on the goalie. It's crazy what a run by Luukkonen can do there. But to answer, to kind of go off your last thing, I think we're going to find out. We're going to find out before the trade deadline what their plan is, right? Because they play Toronto and Nashville in a back-to-back. They're going to throw Comrie in one of those. Is it going to be a Levi cameo? Is there going to be a trade made before that where they do maybe get that veteran goalie? Because again, however accurate they are, the fourth period did have Buffalo linked to a couple of goalies. Elvis Merzlikins, John Gibson. Again, nothing that really moves the needle for me because I don't think you need a John Gibson. Luukkonen has kind of won the starter's net there.
Right.
Is there a veteran goalie out there? Maybe. To me, I'm with the poll. If they're targeting something, I think they need to target a defenseman, whether that's a Dante Fabro type, a younger guy, but that's where the trades get a little bit tough. That's where you're giving up one of your top prospects. That's where you're giving up a guy like Casey Middlestat. Not sure if those trades happen at the deadline. To me, if they're targeting a specific position, it should be defenseman.
Are you assuming that Yoki Haru would possibly be gone as well if a move would to be made there in the top 4?
Even if he isn't, I think you still need one, right? Like you have Power, Dahlin. Those are 2 of your top 4 entrenched no matter what. Yoki Haru has proven he can play top 4 spot minutes here and there and actually have some success. Samuelson, me, I think he's better suited as a third pair. I think Ryan Johnson has top 4 upside, but at the end of the day, if Ryan Johnson's on your third pair with Matthias Samuelson, you're in a pretty good spot. So to me, regardless, they're in need of at least one more top 4 defenseman. Now, is that a Rasmus Anderson? Is that a Dante Fabro? Is that another piece that's not out there? I don't know. But to me, that's the position they should be targeting if they do add a piece.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with that too. It's just it really, to me, depends on the situation with Yoki Haru. I know that they still need some depth there with Samuelson missing the rest of the year, but if you do move a Yoki Haru and bring in one of those defensemen you talked about, like an Anderson or a Faber or somebody along that sort of skill set, like would you be okay with that top 6 going into next year? If they were able to if you'd expect that Yoki Haru is not going to be moved at the deadline, he's going to be gone in the summertime at some point. So, and I know you've been clamoring for Ryan Johnson to get a real opportunity here in the top 4 as he continues to develop. So, to me, I think defense is the likeliest move. Again, just me thinking, about this goaltender situation's kind of got me off beat here a little bit, but I just don't think if you move the forward, you're kind of trying to move a couple of those UFAs out. And unless you're trading a Middlestat, you're really not going to bring in a forward in unless it's a Jordan Greenway type deal. But again, if it's bringing in a Scott Lawton, I'm not sure if that's a deal that you keep saying it might not happen until the summertime if they are kind of able to figure that out. So I do think bringing in a defenseman makes the most sense because it's mostly the top thing that does happen at the deadline. Guys want to bring in defensemen. So if you move out an Eric Johnson and or Henry Okiharu, you're going to have to bring some guys back because you don't have Samuelson for the rest of the year. So I can understand where you and the poll are coming from with saying that defense is the likeliest move. I was just kind of thinking outside the box of wanting an upgrade over Eric Comrie as the backup goaltender to Luukkonen.
No, I'm not against that at all either. I don't think that's necessarily a crazy move either. If you can find a guy who's got like 1 or 2 after this year, 1 or 2 years left, all for it if the cost is there. But to me, if you move out Johnson here and then you run you keep Yoki Haru, if you run a top 4 of Yoki Haru, Power, Dahlin, and Ryan Johnson, give him a little run for the rest of the year. Connor Clifton, he's got his ups and downs, but he can be a third pairing defenseman for this team. Bryson's looked somewhat serviceable. Dare I say even half decent when he's been in as of late. So to me, it's clear out a spot, let Ryan Johnson get a run for the rest of the year because he does have top four upside. But if his ceiling is, a third pair, that's fine. Dahlin and Power are clearly in your top four. I don't know. To me, it's just that is the easiest one to address. To me, it's I don't like saying this because I sound a little bit like Kevin Adams, but their forward group is relatively solid. There's not a lot of openings there unless they create one. So to me, if they go out and get a forward, it's because one is moved out. To me, necessarily, you don't have to move out a defenseman, Eric Johnson aside. You don't have to move out one of those entrenched defensemen to still target a top four because I think you have a hole in your top four regardless because you do have a decision to make on Yoki Haru. You do have a decision to make on Samuelsson, as in, are you going to keep forcing him into that top four? Can he grow into that role? Or are you just going to be like, you know what, he's our third pair guy? So to me, it's just, you don't have to subtract anything from the blue line to address it. Whereas if you want a top six forward, to me, you have to say subtract one of those top six forwards.
Yeah, and I'm not really taking into account because most of the forwards, other than Casey Middlestat, have regressed from last year. So regardless, most of their trade values are going to be the lowest that they've been over the last few years. Even if you were able or looking to move one of them, you're not going to get the proper value back for those guys that you maybe would have gotten last year or what they really should be, just because every forward on this team has regressed in the points department, other than JJ Peterka and Casey Middlestat. And to your other point, like with Samuelsson, if he's going to be a third pair defenseman, with that contract that he's got, I mean, he's going to be here for a while. But like, are you okay with him being a third pair defenseman at that cap hit that he's already at here? And are you, Kevin Adams, would he admit that it was a mistake thinking that Samuelsson was going to be a top pair defenseman and just kind of having to eat that contract for the remainder of it and keep him as a bottom pair defenseman when you've already kind of paying Connor Clifton a hefty amount to be a bottom pair defenseman as well?
Oh, I have no issue with that at all. I don't mind the gamble on Samuelsson. He does have top four upside. He struggles with Dahlin. To me, you can put him in the top four as long as he's not with Rasmus Dahlin. But again, this coaching staff has yet to show me that they will do that. I have no issue with Samuelsson being here long term. I think he's a very steady, serviceable player. To me, it's just about using him properly, finding him in the right role. I think it was not forced, but everyone, myself included, when Dahlin first came into this league, when he, even a couple of years in, it's like he needs that steady, stay-at-home guy, blah, blah, blah. To me, Dahlin can play with anybody in this league now. So you don't necessarily have to pigeonhole Samuelsson into that role, especially when the numbers are showing they just don't work together. So I have no issue with Samuelsson being here, but if you acquire another top four and you can kind of bump down some guys lower in the thing, if you have a guy with top four upside playing on your third pair, you're really upset? No, because that means the rest of your defense is at a higher level. To me, it's better for everyone long term.
Yeah, and we'll get into our last poll here, and that is, if the Sabres are to part with a significant piece to improve their roster, which is their best asset to move? Casey Middlestat, their 2024 first-round pick, or a prospect currently in Rochester? The prospect in Rochester won the poll at 46.7. Again, kind of a vague answer there, but I can't put 7 players on a poll, so just take whatever Rochester player you think and insert there. Casey Middlestat was second at 33.3, and then the 2024 first-round pick at 20%. Austin, what did you think of that?
To me, I've been saying it for the last couple episodes. It's Casey Middlestat. He's your best asset if you want to make a significant move. His value will never be higher. He's been on a 2-season bender. This might be who he is. He's a very good player. I'm not all for trading him. But if we're talking about simply what is the best asset, it's that. Unless you find a team that is willing to give up, you'd have to find a team, one, that's not in the playoff race, that is willing to give up a key piece of their roster for your first-round pick. I don't see that happening right now. There might be. There's put like this. There's no like Jacob Chikrin guy out there where it's this guy is getting traded and he has term on his contract. He's a significant piece. There probably is maybe some guy out there, but there's not like last year it was, where's Chikrin going? Where's Chikrin going? Right? That was the story every year. Buffalo was in on him. There's not that storyline right out there right now. The rest of them are the pending UFAs. So to me, it's that first round pick isn't really going to get you much that'll help you right now because
you're not looking for a rental.
You're not looking for that rental.
You're not looking for a Jake Gensel like possibly one of these other teams will be.
Prospect from Rochester, I mean, yeah. We're talking Yuri Kulik or Isaac Rosen. Well, Elliot Friedman pretty much said, and again, I don't think anyone should be untouchable. But if there is a prospect in Rochester that I don't want to move, it's Yuri Kulik. I think his value is higher than Rosen's right now. That's just the way I think it right now. Again, the name I watch is Matt Savoy, one of the Sabres' top prospects. He's playing phenomenal, but Zach Benson has kind of made him expendable.
Right.
Different style player, but Zach Benson is clearly an NHL-ready player at 18 years old. He's going to be a top 6 player for the Sabres. He's playing extremely well. So to me, he has made a guy like Savoy or Rosen, or even Kulich to a little bit lesser extent. I think they're all different players in their own right, but what Benson has that Savoy doesn't is he is in professional hockey right now. He's in the system. So do those other two guys. They are in Rochester. I know Savoy had a brief stint in Rochester this year, but to me, he's the one that I have circled. I'm not necessarily saying I want to move him, but he's playing very good for Moose Jaw. Maybe that's a guy that gets thrown into a trade to help you get that big piece. I don't know. We'll see. But to me, yeah, no doubt about it. My mind, Casey Middlestad's their best asset if they want to make a significant move.
And I'm in the Devin Levi is not a part of a trade either. I mean, let's just get that out of the way.
No,
because we said a prospect in Rochester. We're not including Devin Levi in that conversation, just so that the listeners out there.
Yeah, sorry, I thought that went without saying. That's my bad.
No, I mean, somebody's going to come at us being like, "Oh, you guys did Devin Levi." No, Devin Levi is excluded from this entire conversation. So anybody other than Devin Levi playing for the Rochester Americans could possibly be moved. But again, I'm with you. I think Casey Middlestad is the best piece that they do have right now. Again, would I like them to eventually start to move first-round picks to go and get guys? Yes, but I don't think that a deadline move is the right play to move your first-round pick because you're really not going for it this year. And like you mentioned, there's not that top-end guy with term left on on his contract where you'd say, okay, let's go and move our first-round pick to get this guy. And if there was, those are deals that usually happen in the summertime or heading towards the draft because the Sabres at this point are going to have another top 10, top 15 draft pick at this point. So again, they've had so many of those over the last few years that I'm okay with them moving it for the right guy. But as you mentioned, I just don't think that right player is available for this year's first-round pick. But I'd like to see a deal like that eventually be made in the Sabres rotation as they go forward here into improving into a competitive team because we see those buyers every year. They go 2 or 3, 4 years without having their first round pick, and then they pay the consequences after if they have a couple of deep playoff runs or do win a couple of Stanley Cups like the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I just don't think they're at that point yet to be able to say we're going to move our first round pick for something.
No, not at all. Sorry about that. My child is a little bit fussy. But yeah, no, they are not in position to move their first round pick right now. Lottery protected maybe, but again, once you throw that lottery protection on, it kind of loses its value a little bit there. Levi obviously not going anywhere. Just because Luukkonen's playing well doesn't mean you have to move on from Levi. That's not how it works. The more goalie prospects in your system, the better. To me, it's Middlestat, top prospect, not Devin Levi, then a first round pick. I don't think any of those are getting moved. Again, that's been my thing all episode long, which means I'm probably definitely going to be wrong. But I don't know. Summertime, much different conversation. I do think Middlestat will be moved, just not right now.
Right. So, again, there's a lot of answers, a lot of questions to be answered here for the Buffalo Sabres at the upcoming NHL Trade Deadline. And hopefully we gave you guys a little bit of a discussion of what to possibly expect for the next week or so as we look ahead to the Buffalo Sabres trade deadline. And if there is going to be something of significance, Austin, it looks like your child's pretty interested in this conversation on who's going to be moved here, pending UFAs or what have you. So that's going to wrap up another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. For Austin Broad, my name is Brandon Caputo. Make sure to follow us at Sabres Semantics for all of our Sabres content here on the network, and give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm sure we're going to be clipping this episode for you guys with a little bit interesting discussion here as we approach the NHL trade deadline, and we'll be back hopefully to recap some moves made for the Sabres for our next recording. So until next time, this has been another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, brought to you by J&O Flooring.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.